Afternoon, ladies. Got a quick video for you this afternoon on belly fat, okay? Something that you are all probably aware of gets a little bit more in abundance when we get to our 40s and over 40s. Okay, so we're talking about this here, right? Okay, now it's with all of us. My waist has definitely got bigger as I've got older, and it's a natural thing that happens, but it's also something we can do about it in terms of stopping it getting out of hand and affecting our health. Okay, so as we go into our 40s and 50s, for men and women, generally we get more abdominal fat, especially as women approach menopause, perimenopause, and the menopause state itself. Now, there are two hormones that are kind of partners in crime when it comes to the laying down of abdominal fat, and those are insulin and cortisol. One thing I want to stress is that while this body fat from an aesthetic point of view isn't nice, what's more concerning to us, and definitely what should be on your radar, is the fact that the visceral fat, which is laid down beneath your tummy muscles around your organs, is the type of fat that is indicative of chronic diseases later on, such as type 2 diabetes and heart disease. So if you've got a history of either of those in the family, so you're genetically more predisposed to them, it's something you want to be in your conscience even more. Okay, so there's two aspects. There's the aesthetic, sitting down in your jeans and your belly hanging over your jeans part, that isn't pleasant for any of us, and it's not nice to feel that you've got a fat tummy. But there's also the health aspect as well. Okay, and from a longevity and a wanting to be there for our kids and our grandchildren perspective, we really need to get a handle on our waist measurements, okay, and our abdominal fat. So insulin and cortisol both have a role in the formation of this. I just want to discuss both of them. I'm going to talk about what we can do to manage both of them in another video, but for now I want to explain how the fat comes to lie down in the first place. So insulin is secreted from the pancreas, and essentially it controls our blood sugar levels, okay? It's not a condition that our body wants to be in where there's a lot of sugar in our blood. So it shuttles the sugar out of the blood and stores it in cells, which then goes to be converted into fat or whatever. That doesn't matter. For the purposes of this exercise, it takes the blood out of the sugar out of the blood, sorry. It also is crucial, insulin, for getting amino acids into our muscles. So for muscle repair, when you've done some strength work at Fit Mums, for example, and those muscle repairs need to, those muscle fibres need to repair, we need amino acids in our muscles to do that. Insulin's important, which is why you need some carbohydrate in your meal after you've worked out in order to get that protein to shuttle through to your muscles. It's also involved in the synthesis of fats, insulin is. And importantly, because it works in the opposite way to another hormone, glucagon, while you've got insulin in your blood, you cannot break fat down to be used as energy. So the two are, mutually exclusive. So when we've got insulin in our system, our body cannot take fat that we want to use for it to be broken down and stored to energy. So it's another reason, if we're looking at fat loss, we want to keep our insulin levels low, okay? It's also involved in getting potassium in the cells and other issues, but for the purpose of this, we'll just focus on those main bits. Cortisol is a stress hormone, and it's secreted by the adrenal gland, and it keeps us safe, okay? Without cortisol, we would probably not be alive by now, because it's involved in that with noradrenaline and adrenaline. It's involved in that fight or flight response action that gets us pulls us out the way of cars when we're on the road, stops us from hurting ourselves when we're tripping over, pulls our hand away from the pan when we go to touch it and it's hot, okay? It's that stress hormone, that reactive fight, flight, freeze hormone. It also wakes us up in the morning, okay? If you look at cortisol patterns throughout the night, throughout the day, your cortisol levels rise, and providing you've got an appropriate and healthy response to cortisol, you feel awake when you wake up. If you're feeling druggish in the morning, that proposes to me that your cortisol levels are chronically high and you've not got the right appropriate response to cortisol that you should have. So if you're gluggy in the morning, that is an indication that your cortisol levels are chronically high. But anyway, it wakes us up, so it's a good hormone from that perspective. Now, there's nothing wrong with cortisol. The issue we have in today's society is that various lifestyle factors mean that we have chronic levels of cortisol, as in they're elevated for a lot longer period of time than they should be. Things that contribute to that are prolonged exercise. So you'll notice with the Fit Mums exercise, we don't actually exercise for more than about 40 minutes at a time, and we're stopping, we're starting, we're changing over. That's the best form of exercise with strength training and HIIT, high intensity interval training, to minimise your cortisol levels while getting your exercise, okay? In fact, the high intensity exercise actually encourages the excretion of growth hormone, which combats belly fat, so there's an added advantage there, but we'll go into that at another point. Sleep deprivation is another one that causes chronic cortisol levels. Prolonged exercise I've mentioned. Starvation, so going for too fewer calories, going for long periods of time in between food, longer than you are able to function on, and reducing your calories is another thing that produces cortisol. It regulates your blood sugar in relation to stress. And importantly, from a fat perspective, it has two roles. It synthesizes fats, but also it breaks down fats, okay? So it has two roles in fat regulation. And the reason insulin and cortisol together are such a bad combination for belly fat is these two fat synthesis, fat breakdown hormones that are activated by cortisol naturally balance each other out in the absence of insulin, okay? So they kind of don't really cause too much of a bother when insulin's not present. When insulin is present, that deactivates the hormone that cortisol causes to give us fat breakdown, okay? So once that fat breakdown hormone is gone, the only hormone that's present that's actually doing anything then is the fat storage hormone, which is why that combination of insulin and cortisol together is something that we just don't want for abdominal fat, okay? Now, I'm going to do a couple more videos this week on what we can do to control our insulin levels and what we can do to control our cortisol levels. But if I go through that now, this video is going to be horrendously long. So I wanted to introduce you to the concept as to why these hormones together at elevated levels are not good for many things, including that abdominal fat, the visceral fat underneath, and the superficial. One, that's not pleasing aesthetically, and two, that's a poor indicator of our health status in terms of chronic conditions later on in life. Okay, I'll leave that with you, and we'll cover this more later in the week. Okay, bye.